Well, hey, welcome to Slice of Life, Season 2, believe it or not, Episode 1. I got Jason with me today. You've
Hi, everybody.
never met Jason, but you've met his wife, Stephanie. We had a session last year, or in Season 1. I can't remember which one. That was a great, probably one of my favorite ones with your wife. So let's hopefully this one will go well.
Hopefully.
We'll see.
Hopefully.
We'll see. But it's been a dream of mine to get this podcast going for a while. Slice of Life, for those of you, since it's Season 2, if you don't know what's going on, we're just talking about God and how that intersects with our life. You know, that God should be in every part, every aspect of our life. It's not our life and figuring out how we fit God into it, but rather the opposite.
Yeah.
Right? God, and how do we fit our life into where God is at. And so I thought what would be fun, because you and I are very passionate about movies.
Yes.
We love to talk about movies. Jason, just for those of you that don't know, he's kind of our media, tech, drummer, all around whatever guy. In fact, you might recognize New Digs. Those of you that have watched us, the New Digs here. This is Jason. Man, I love it. I love this look.
It was a labor, but I'm proud of how it turned out.
A labor of love, right? So this is a total change around, but it's a good change.
Yes.
So I'm excited to get into it. But let's talk about movies.
Okay.
So I'm gonna put you on the spot right away. Best comedy you've ever seen?
Oh, that is on the spot. I don't know if I have a best. I have a series of go-tos.
Okay. Go for it.
I'm a big fan. Grew up on a lot of the old school stuff. They're not always the best.
Yeah.
But growing up, we grew up on British comedy.
Okay. Right.
So,
yeah. A little bit about your history there, because
Yeah.
that might be interesting for
Yeah.
people to
So
know.
my dad's English. Born and raised in England. Came over to the States in the mid '80s. So we watched a lot of British comedy more than anything. So growing up, we always had like the Monty Python stuff, which
Right.
isn't the best, but
Yeah.
some of those, there's just
Some of the
comedy
Holy Grail,
gold.
right?
Yeah.
Holy Grail.
Holy
Scenes in the
Grail
Holy Grail. It's only a
is-
flesh wound.
Mhm.
I mean, there's certain, those are iconic.
you can't. And "'Tis a Flesh Wound," I think, gets quoted in my house more than almost anything.
Right.
Anytime there's a little bit of blood,
Yeah.
"'Tis a Flesh Wound."
Yeah.
So, and you can't go wrong
Right.
with just terrible comedy.
Yeah. Well, I think that's interesting because, when we talk about quoting, because I'm one of those guys. I quote movies all the time. And what's funny is because we're similar in movie likes. So even from the pulpit, I'm quoting movies, and some people have no clue. And I could see you a lot of times, sound booth, you're back there.
Yep.
I could see you in a way. You're busting up because you caught it.
Yes.
Right? No one
Yes.
else caught it, right?
No.
If it's a severed head,
If it's- yep.
those type of things, most would not know. Wayne's World, by the way, right? Most would not know what
That
I'm
poor
talking
gentleman that
about.
morning. He just looked at you like, why would I give you a
I
severed
would-
head?
yeah, exactly. Right. So I think movie quotes are really powerful
Yeah.
because they bring us back to those moments, and they bring us, for a lot of us, into the same arena, or we're finally on the same page.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think about Paul, when I'm talking about the Apostle Paul in the New Testament. He would go into areas and he'd find common ground, and that's where he started when he started talking about Jesus.
Yeah.
And I think movie quotes, man, that's a common ground
Yeah.
for a lot of people.
Yeah. Because honestly, you and I are very different people.
Yes.
But I love Wayne's World. You love Wayne's World. That
Party time.
Yeah. But quoting that brings us closer together. So it does. It is a good common ground.
Yeah. Yeah, and for me, so we talk about comedies, Wayne's World. My story is a little different, only from the fact that Wayne's World helped me through, which sounds really bad, but as a young man, helped me through, parents getting divorced and trying just the struggles of life. And my best friend Kyle, my brother from another mother, right? Hey, Kyle. We would watch that all the time. I mean, it was like we would get together and we'd watch Wayne's World.
Yeah.
And that's just, and then when we talked Wayne's World.
Yeah.
And it became that piece for me that helped me kind of process through that, and it was really before knowing God, and I was a Christian, but really wasn't a Christian.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. And
Yeah.
getting to that point where even today it brings back such great memories for me. But it's not really the movie, although the movie, I love it still. But it's the memories of that time, spending time with Kyle, his parents were actually going through a divorce at the same time, right? So it became almost therapeutic.
Yeah.
In those movies. So favorite comedy, for me, Wayne's World. What movie made you cry?
Oh, in what manner? Just like out of nowhere.
Sad, just like.
Oh boy. See, that's hard because I bottle my emotions.
Okay.
Pretty.
Okay.
I would say comically.
Yeah.
So, movie made me cry.
Come on, you had to shed a tear.
I'm genuinely trying to think. I
Okay.
know I have, and it's been recent and over the dumbest stuff. Now that I've had kids,
Right.
You cry over some weird things.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of which movie it was, because there was a movie we were watching.
It was Toy Story.
It was Toy Story 3. That's the one when they're all standing there in the trash compactor.
That's it.
Actually, that one might have actually made me cry.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't remember which. Oh, that's gonna bug me now.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, for me, I cried the hardest probably, and I think I've shared this with you, over the movie Bad Boys.
Okay.
I know everyone's like, what Bad Boys?
No, yeah.
There's a horrible scene at the end of the movie. They're in the runway.
Yep.
Man, it's been forever since I've even seen that movie. But I can still remember it. There's a Shelby Cobra, gorgeous
car.
And they drive it into a wall.
Yep.
That made me cry. That was such a waste.
I cried there too, but that was a different cry.
Yeah, that was
because that was just like a
pure sorrow to see.
Yeah.
And then if you you paused it, you saw that it wasn't real, it was fabricated. So
it
made me feel a little bit better.
Yeah, it was full fiberglass.
But that
partial
first
chassis.
Scene,
Yeah, it was.
And obviously, I mean, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But in that, but I think
But as a car lover.
Yes.
I completely understand that because those cars are just, I mean, way before their time.
Right.
Just one of those, like, it's a dream to see one.
Oh.
It's an even bigger dream to ride in one, and to own one is just not even possible.
Yeah.
In hours.
There's so many great movies with great cars. Some of them last.
Yes.
Some of the cars last. Great. But then you see other times and the car gets destroyed and just.
So the entire Fast and Furious franchise.
Exactly. I was about to say that, right?
Yeah.
You've watched any Fast and Furious anytime.
It went from decent car movie for the kids growing up in the street scene to how many expensive cars can we destroy?
Yes. Yeah. Over and over and over again.
So sad.
So, all those great American muscle cars. That they destroy.
And classics that nobody loves. There's a couple old school Ford Escorts that get just obliterated, and it does.
You're gonna make me cry again.
Yeah, as I'm talking.
All these great cars that are out there. Right?
Yeah.
But I think for real, I love what you said there. Kids kind of soften your heart a little bit, change it. But I also find that maybe it's not an age thing, but a maturity thing to see that there are moments now, because I've never really been an emotional guy.
Yeah,
I've always bottled it up. But man, so often now I find myself like I'm actually tearing up.
Yeah.
Or normally I'd be like laughing at my wife and my two daughters.
Yeah.
What are you crying about? It's just a movie, and I'm like starting to tear up. Like, okay, well, maybe I'm getting into this.
Yeah, trying to find your drink really quick to hide what's actually happening so nobody else
those
around
allergies,
you.
man.
Yeah.
They're just horrible, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I do remember what it was now. It was Bonhoeffer.
Okay. Ooh. Yeah.
So we took Vincent to go see Bonhoeffer, and at the very end, if you don't know the story of Bonhoeffer, I'm so sorry.
Spoiler alert.
World War II. It's a very well-known story. So,
Yeah.
but at the very end, he gets hung, and the camp guard, who is in charge of making sure he actually gets hung, tries to let him go.
Yeah.
Tries to say, he's like, I'll take the blunt of this. You run.
Right.
And he doesn't. He stands there. It's like, no, this is what I need to do. And he openly walks to his death for his faith in what he did.
Yeah.
And yeah, that one got me.
Powerful.
It is
powerful. It's
yeah.
For those that we're talking about Christianity now. You think about like Fox Books of Martyrs. If you don't know what that is, it's literally just a book of martyrs. It's their story.
Yeah.
And when you begin to read some of those stories, Bonhoeffer is a great example. He's not in that book, but because the book's much older than that, you read their stories and it just blows you away.
Yeah.
One of the stories in that is it's Nero, Emperor Nero at this time, early Christianity. These ladies, talking about these ladies being gored by bulls, and they're still singing hymns.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the Colosseum, in the arena, they were killed by gladiators. They were tore apart by lions, and it was interesting in history. What you saw in those moments is a turning of more people to Christianity because they saw these individuals in the arena that had joy and had peace.
Yeah.
And yet
terrible circumstances.
Right.
Yeah.
In fact, the one, like they were talking about, that she was actually still impaled to the bull.
Yeah.
And was singing, was worshiping.
Yeah.
Right. Was singing praises to God. And so at that moment, it radically transformed so many in the Colosseum.
Yeah.
So that which meant to stop Christianity actually helped Christianity grow even greater.
Yeah.
Which is, it's a story of Christianity.
Yeah.
That every time you persecute, right, we recognize Acts is a great example of that. They come back after being beat. This is, Peter and John, and they're like, hey, we're so glad that we're worthy of this. Now God give us more boldness, and the power to go out. Don't protect us, but rather give us the ability to go out. Give us the boldness to go out. So, incredible moment. Yeah. So Bonhoeffer, a great example. Best romantic movie.
Oh, I see. I'm not really into huge romantic movies, so I'm not really the one to ask.
Yeah. I'm not even.
I don't know.
I can't stand Hallmark, by the way.
No.
Hallmark, Lifetime, they can they can go away.
Very much.
And
so.
it would be beautiful.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think
but Princess Bride, man.
Okay. I will give you. I will give you Princess Bride. Yeah.
Romantic.
No. Because it's also
than that.
hilarious.
Oh, that's it. Inconceivable. I mean, just come on. Right? I mean, just the whole movie. Andre the Giant, I think he makes the movie.
He does. He does.
Just an incredible figure. You killed my father, prepare to die. I mean, just all these lines from that movie, right? And so I know I call her romantic, but that's about as romantic as I want to get.
That's
put a lot of comedy in there.
Yep.
And then with a little bit of romance, I can deal with that.
Yeah.
In fact, it reminds me of Fred Savage as a kid, right, in that movie, and it reminds me that the kissing scene, and he's like, "Oh, can you pass that?" I'm like, "Yeah, Fred, dude, I'm exactly like you are.
Yeah.
Can we pass that part?" That's talking about romance. That's the problem with Star Wars.
Okay.
I cannot stand Episode 2.
Okay.
Because of that romance scene, him riding the giant tick and falling off, and then she goes to check, and then they roll and they're laughing.
Yeah.
What is that about? What garbage is that?
That was to get the girls in. They knew they had the guys because there's lightsabers and laser blasters and. Yeah.
I gotta watch what I say here. I don't want to upset the female side of those watching, but get over it. Don't ruin Star Wars.
Yeah.
You see those things, and I this is horrible. But here Padme comes out, and she's like dressed provocatively.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, "Well, don't look at me that way. Don't touch me. Don't right?
Don't.
You know that Anakin has a thing for you.
Yeah.
You know, and so what you're gonna do is show a bunch of skin, right? And be surprised that he looks at you even worse.
Yep.
Because you had already told him, don't look at me that way.
Yeah.
You know, boy, I feel the hate coming already on that one, right? But yeah, so Star Wars romance has no place in it.
No.
You know, right? I think, or if they're gonna do it, you know, you can put it in there. I mean, I understand they had to do it so that you know we get Luke and Leia.
Yep.
Right. So I understand that there had to be some romance that was in there, but couldn't you have done it Princess Bride romance?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And gone from there, or Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Yes,
romance.
please.
Hey, we're men in tights.
Yeah.
Tight.
Tights.
Some of you are probably going to wonder, what kind of pastor
such a
is
good
this?
movie.
Right. Right. Again, there's so many iconic movies out there, and you know. But I think in the reason I wanted to talk about movies today, we have to, as Christians, view movies from a God point.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is that as I've grown, what I begin to understand is that number one, there are things that I don't need to be watching.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll tell you, probably one of my top movie series, Austin Powers.
Yeah, the comedy in that is
Mike Myers is genius.
It is.
Mini Me, the scene where they're in prison, right? And then they do the rap. I mean, come on, there are just some moments of that.
Absolutely.
The coffee scene.
Yep.
It's a little nutty.
Yep.
You know.
Every time Will Ferrell makes an appearance in that movie, he's always
love it, right?
Almost dead, but still alive.
Right. So you know, you look at Austin Powers and you know, PG-13 and you know, I'll tell you right now. So one of the things that my wife and I came to a decision years ago is we don't watch it rated R movies.
Okay.
So you know, and that's for our home.
Yeah.
You know, I don't preach, don't watch rated R movies, but for me personally, for my wife and I, my home, we don't watch rated R except for historical movies.
Okay.
Right? And the R rating is for violence. I think Braveheart's a great example.
Yeah.
Gladiator is a great example.
Yeah.
It's not about nudity and language and
it's the blood
sex.
and gore that causes
which is historical blood and gore.
Yes.
Right. It's not dramatized.
Yeah.
You know, I think you know, so we've made that decision years ago. It's been a long time. Because what I realized is that the more garbage I put into myself, at some point garbage will come out. And so we go to Austin Powers. I remember my wife bought me the 3-pack.
Okay.
You know, the collector's edition, the great edition. And I was watching it one day, and you know, my girls were there. And man, I just felt God was like, "What are you doing? You know, where am I in these movies?"
Yeah.
And that began a journey for me to begin to watch every movie looking for God.
Okay.
Right. And so what I saw with Austin Powers is it was all really about sex.
100%.
Right. Obviously a spoof off of James Bond and those great historical films, you know, and just pushing the envelope and going beyond. And I realized I can't find God in these.
Yeah.
You know, and so you know what I did is I threw away the 3-pack of Austin Powers. Yeah, it's PG-13, so it fits within my rule. It's not rated R. But I realized, you know, I can't find God in there at all.
Yeah. And
I love Mike Myers.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Wayne's World.
Wayne's World.
I love Wayne's World.
Yeah.
And I actually enjoy Cat in the Hat. I mean, you know, like there's some you know, some of his things not one of his best things, but it's interesting.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it started me on this journey to say, okay, where can I find God in these movies? And we were talking about crying just a minute ago. That's where I find myself crying a lot.
Okay.
Is when I find the truth of God in a movie form.
Okay.
Right. Which is interesting to me because so many of the directors, so many of the writers, producers, actors are non-Christian.
Mm-hmm.
But in the Bible, it talks about the firmament, the earth, the whole earth shows the glory of God.
Mm-hmm.
Right. What we have to do is begin to train ourselves to see God. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Right.
That makes sense.
And so let's talk about it. Let's talk about another actor who I enjoy a lot of his movies, Jim Carrey.
Okay.
Right. Again, non-Christian.
Non-Christian.
Right? Funny comedian. He's done some bad movies. Cable Guy.
Yeah.
He's done some incredible movies. Dumb and Dumber.
Ace Ventura.
Right. Oh my word. All right. So some great movies.
Mm-hmm.
He's stretched himself as an actor in some movies. He's done some things. But I'll tell you, one of my favorite movies that he's ever done is Bruce Almighty.
Okay.
Right. And now that one's a little, you're like, okay, well, that one's easy to find God because they're talking about God.
Are they talking about God or are they making fun of God is the bigger question.
Right. And so many they'll be like, well, that's sacrilegious.
Oh,
it's,
100%.
It's blasphemy,
Mm-hmm.
But when you begin to, I think, change your mindset and watch a movie and go, okay, are there elements of God that I see truth in here?
Mm-hmm.
Are there moments? And so there's two real incredible scenes. I've actually preached from these scenes, use them as examples. One is early on in the movie. If you've seen the movie,
yeah,
he's frustrated. He's upset. He gets the prayer beads from his girlfriend, and he's crying out to God. God, help me. God, show me a sign.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
And some of the greatest writing.
Yeah.
Right after happens.
And there's these signs.
Yeah.
Road signs they're shown up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he just gets more frustrated. And at one point, he grabs those prayer beads and says, okay, now I'm going to do it like you want me to, which those prayer beads, by the way, right? Whatever. You don't need
That's
prayer
a whole
beads
different
to pray,
conversation.
right? I just lost the Catholics on that one. So, but, what happens at that moment is that this truck pulls in front of him,
mm-hmm.
slows him down, and the truck has all these danger signs
yeah.
on him. Stop ahead, right? The whole thing.
Yeah.
And what does he do? He goes, "Oh, come on!" and pulls over and gets into an accident.
Yeah.
Right. It's in that moment you look at that and go, "Isn't that exactly what we do?"
Oh,
right?
100%.
With God, we're like, "God, where are you? God, and God has put these stops."
Mm-hmm.
And I can think of times specifically in my life. In fact, one story is I remember dealing with a certain situation. And I felt like the radio kept playing the same song over and over
yep.
again, and it wasn't until hindsight when I look back, I'm like, oh yeah, God, I guess God was speaking the whole time,
yeah.
because then I finally paid attention.
Yeah.
But in that moment, you see that, and you're like, man, that element plays so well. But then later on in the movie, near the end of the movie, if you don't know, so Bruce Almighty. God gives him the power. There's some interesting theories all about this too, but gives him his power and
mm-hmm.
he uses it, and through this he finds out that he's been a bad boyfriend,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, been an absolutely terrible.
So he's talking
boyfriend.
to Morgan Freeman, who's playing God in this moment, and he begins to pray.
Mm-hmm.
And God tells him to pray, Bruce to pray.
Yeah.
And Bruce starts praying for his girlfriend, and Morgan Freeman tells him, hey, well, so you want her back,
mm-hmm.
right? And he said, no, I just want someone to love her, right? And
yeah.
see her. This is the line I love so much. See her through your eyes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? The way I see her now, because I'm seeing her through
yep.
your eyes. And man, I tell you, that moment made me cry. It makes me cry every time I think about it, because I understand whether they know what they were doing or not.
Yeah.
But they were telling us, hey, if we saw people and saw ourselves
yeah.
through God's lens,
yeah,
we would see something so much greater.
So much greater.
Right? That all my failures, all my mistakes, all the things I've done, to God, he looks at me as his beloved, as one he loves. he designed me, right?
Yeah.
I'm his masterpiece,
Yep.
right? Marvelously, wonderfully created, formed. And therefore, he sees me that way. And then he also sees everyone else that way,
Yeah.
And what changes in our life when we begin to see people the way that God sees them. I saw one meme at one point said, you'll never look at anyone that God doesn't love. So everywhere I look, I'm looking at Jason right now. God loves you, right? I mean,
Yep.
I can't go anywhere in this world. The drunk, the homeless, the impoverished, the gangs, right? The murderers.
Mm-hmm.
Right? God loves every single one of them.
Yep.
And therefore that's how I should see them. And in that movie that Bruce Almighty, in that part, that spoke so deeply to me, right? That it's that great reminder of my goal as a Christian, as a disciple. Our goal is to look at everyone like God looks at them. Well, when you do that, hate goes out, right? The prejudice goes out, racism goes out. All these other things that divide us, they all go out because we find that common ground that we were talking about earlier, right?
Yeah.
Where we're like, okay, well, God loves you and he loves me the same.
Yeah.
I know God, like I'm God's favorite, but still, right? That's David, right? If you know anything about King David, he would say things like, God delights in me, like I'm his favorite. But still, we're on that same level, right? We get to that common ground, and so I think movies can be such a great catalyst to help us be reminded of God in our everyday life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Honestly, I don't think I've ever looked at the ending of Bruce Almighty that way, so I'm gonna have to rewatch it now.
Good, I challenge you.
Yeah, I like that.
But I think most movies, again, and that's kind of how I judge a movie now.
Yeah.
Is I'm trying to look at it and say, okay, where do I see God?
Yeah.
The other day, in fact, I shared this from the pulpit. I was watching Lord of the Rings. Was it the second one? I can't remember which one. And Aragorn was talking to his girlfriend, right? And at one point he says this great line, and he says, "The path is hidden from me," right? And she basically says, "But you're already walking it."
Yeah. Yeah. It's not that it's hidden; you're just not looking.
Exactly. And is that not God so often?
100%.
Right. What we desire is to know exactly what that next step is. And what God is just telling us so often is just walk it, right? Just walk it. Do one of my favorite sermons I've ever preached. Just do the next right thing.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly where I'm going.
Yeah.
But I can make the next right decision.
Yeah.
I think it's easy. You start taking life that way. It's like making the next right decision is easy. And right being godly, right? Righteousness, right? To go, okay, what's the next right thing? Well, be a better husband, be a better father for and so I think, seeing her tell him that, again, is one of those moments that should speak volumes to us and kind of remind us, oh yeah, am I doing the next right thing? Am I so concerned with my destination or am I concerned with my next day?
Yeah.
Right. And I say next day, let's say next moment.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we should be living. The scriptures tell us is that tomorrow's not promised.
No.
Right. So do what you can do today. Do the righteousness today. The right things of God today.
Yeah.
Are there any movies that you can think of? Put you on the spot again. I know.
Without rehashing anything from Lord of the Rings, because as a lot of people know, those movies are spiritually based in the first place.
Yeah. J.R.R. Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, and they were buds.
Yep.
Right, and they had, for those of you that don't know, they had one common interest, and that was bringing the gospel to literary individuals.
Yeah.
And so they wrote these books, right? C.S. Lewis, Chronicles of Narnia. Which is books. Again more than one book, by the way. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It's there's more than one book. I think there's 7 in that. That tells the whole story. Incredible. The Silver Chair is about creation. Incredible moments. But and their goal was like, how do we get the gospel out to those that don't want to hear about Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But we're going to bring it to them in literary form.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously we've come into the movies finally, right?
Yeah.
But in their day and age, they didn't really have that
No.
capability.
No.
But to be able to say, okay, once I've told you the story of Christianity
Yeah.
in kind of a roundabout way,
Yeah.
now I can tell you, hey, let me tell you who Gandalf is, or
Yeah.
Aslan, if we're talking about Chronicles of Narnia.
Yep.
Let me walk you through what this means.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Dang, you really did put me on the spot now. I'm
Yeah.
trying to think of something.
I know it's difficult because
It is.
you know, and this is a journey that I've been on for years,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I think, you know, if there wasn't a microphone in your face, you probably could figure it out
Probably.
fairly quickly.
Probably.
But beginning to look at those moments,
Mhm.
and I think again as Christians, our goal our should be,
Mm-hmm.
if what we're digesting, movies,
Yeah.
right, television shows, if we're
Yeah.
digesting, how are we filtering
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
you know?
Absolutely.
And so, like for me, filtering and going, I just can't watch Austin Powers anymore.
Yeah.
There's no godly moment in there. It's all garbage.
Yeah. 100%.
Right. And so, making decisions, I think, for ourselves and our families, and saying, what can I watch?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and what shouldn't I watch?
Mhm.
Now, okay, so I'm gonna lose most people here. I will tell you that horror flicks have no place in a Christian home.
Not a fan of them.
I
In
don't-
fact, I wish there was an opt-out button
Yeah.
on all of the streaming services
Right.
in October for ads.
Well, and
Um,
the problem is it's gotten
Oh,
bad
yeah, it's all year round.
all year round now.
And that's
Horror's
one thing
coming out all the time.
I've noticed over the last couple of years. My family is super sensitive to that stuff.
Yeah.
And during October is the most time of the year that our kids don't sleep.
Yeah.
Stephanie's really sensitive to spiritual stuff like that. So the other day we were watching, I don't even remember what it was. I think it might have been the Hillsong documentary.
Yeah.
And a horror movie ad came on, and she was like, "It's February. Why? Why
Right.
are we having these come out now? Like,
Yeah.
why do we have to?" And I'm 100% in agreement. I used to be kind of not a fan, but I would watch them because of the people I was around.
Yeah.
But they have no place in my home.
And I think
None whatsoever.
I think the issue is that too many Christians play with the demonic.
Yeah, they take it as
Because-
entertainment.
Because they think exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, we wrestle not against flesh and blood,
Mhm.
the Scripture tells us,
Yeah.
but against principalities and powers, the spiritual realm.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's
And
real.
we that's the problem. We joke about it.
Mhm.
We make fun of it,
Yeah.
and yet we indulge in it.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny because you know you talk to Christians and they're like, oh don't mess with Ouija boards.
Oh,
Don't-
yeah.
You know, and tarot cards. Oh, you're right on.
100%.
But you're gonna watch movies
Mhm.
that are more demonic than that.
Yeah.
More darkness than that.
Yeah.
You know, and yet be okay with it.
Yeah.
And I know so many that argue with me all the time. Well, it doesn't affect me that way. It doesn't. What you put in you at some
Yeah.
point will come out of you.
Yeah.
And where there is fear, there's no God.
Mhm.
You know that we see that Scriptures tells us whatever is true, whatever is wholesome, whatever is good, right? Those are the things that we should think on. We should
Yeah.
avoid the darkness, and yet we're purposely putting ourselves into darkness.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think there are lines that, as a disciple of Christ, that we've got to draw.
Mhm.
And one of those lines is, I don't watch horror.
Yeah.
Right. I don't care if it's G-rated. Don't watch horror.
I think the closest
you know?
thing we get to horror is like the murder mystery, like documentary styles.
Right.
We watched a series called Manhunt Unabomber. That's
Yeah.
just talking about searching for the Unabomber. I think that's
Right.
as far as we get.
And that's more.
And
that's more thriller.
Exactly.
Than horror. 'Cause
Yeah.
I think we're laying horror out. Freddy Krueger,
Yep.
Candyman.
Cabin in the Woods.
right,
It's like
I don't know the newer movies, but it just is that
Yeah.
those forces. I think
Mhm.
we've got to draw that line.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to find God in that.
No.
You're going to be praying to God,
Mhm.
probably.
Well, and even the ones like Exorcist and all of
Yeah.
that, there's a God element, but God's not there.
No, God's not in that.
No,
You're
not
not
at
gonna you're not gonna watch that, right?
No.
And so I think we have to draw the line somewhere, and then individualistically we have to draw the line. I think for ourselves.
Mhm. Yeah.
My family and I, we don't watch rated R movies.
Yeah.
That's my conviction. And Paul talks about this actually in the New Testament when he's writing, and he'll say, hey, decide for yourself on I hate to use the words gray areas,
Yeah.
but on those areas, if it's a sin for you,
Yeah.
then it's a sin for you.
Absolutely.
But don't push that onto someone else. And
Yeah.
so for me, like I said, rated R movies, I'm just been convicted.
Mhm.
I don't need to be watching
Yeah.
sexual content. I
Yeah.
don't need to be hearing all that language.
Yeah.
Do I miss some of those movies? I really don't, honestly. What's cracked me up several times, so is that go to watch a movie that I remember watching as a kid
Oh yeah.
and finding out they're rated R,
Yeah.
right? Well, we watched them on TV, and those of you that are younger probably
Yeah.
don't
The
understand
old
this,
TV
but-
movies were not
right.
rated R
No,
when they
because
were on TV.
They edited all that
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden you start watching and going, "Oh, I've never heard that language." In fact, I was watching National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation
Okay.
for the first time this year. I watched it streaming. Watched
Yeah.
it apparently, and all of a sudden he starts there's a lot of language in that movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, I've never heard of them. Just
Mhm.
like my wife and I are just sitting there. Oh, what in the world did we just see?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
or just here. So I think making that decision for yourself, for your
Mhm.
family
Mhm.
specifically, but for yourself, what is it? Because I think what we have to be honest about is that movies impact us,
Mhm.
right?
Absolutely.
Television impacts us.
Yeah.
Video games impact us.
Oh, you're not
I
kidding.
tell you, like Forza, like one of my
Love
favorite.
Forza.
Here's my problem: when I play Forza, I get in my car,
And then you think you're
I
in
play
Forza.
Forza.
It's
So-
worse for me. I have a steering wheel set up
Yeah.
for Forza, so then I'm like in the zone. Yeah.
natural, right?
Yeah, that's bad.
Thankfully, I've never played Assassin's Creed and went out and tried to kill anybody.
Yes.
It's not that bad,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it impacts us.
Yeah.
Right. So emotionally charges
Mhm.
us, and again, it speaks into our lives. And I think the other part that I think we've got to realize is that, again, I said earlier, the directors, the producers, the writers, the actors, so many are non-Christian.
Yeah.
And they are pushing an agenda,
Mm-hmm.
whether you believe they are or not.
They absolutely
They're
are.
pushing an agenda, and the more we begin to watch these movies, these television shows, listen to music,
Mhm.
play even video games. Assassin's Creed, I'll tell you, they push an agenda,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
A specific agenda. I love the movie or love the games because they're more Tomb Raider style games.
Yeah.
You remember the puzzles. And,
Yeah.
right.
Love that. Mm-hmm.
They're the great storyline, historical storyline with their own agenda. And I need to, number one, recognize that, because once I know that there's an agenda being pushed,
Yeah.
I can push that aside
Yeah.
and go, okay, I see where you're pushing your
Yeah.
own. But if I don't do that, they can actually begin to change how I see the world.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we're seeing in our age today, 2025, recent surveys talking about the biblical worldview, or a Christian worldview, or just a world worldview,
Yeah.
right? And saying in America, the majority of Christians have a non-biblical worldview.
Yeah.
They view the world through the secular eyes. They view the
Mhm.
world through their social media. That's how they view the world.
Yeah.
The Bible's no longer the litmus test for everything.
Yeah.
It's how they feel. It's how they interact.
Yeah.
Some very disturbing numbers have come out recently, just about that. Even talking about pastors that don't have a holistic biblical worldview.
Yeah.
Right. So I think we've got to be cautious too when we watch movies, TVs, that these shows, that we don't allow those to change our view on things. Right.
Yeah.
Meaning they're pushing an agenda, and I was trying to think of an example right off the top of my head, but so often they'll push. Oh, well, Star Wars. Let's talk about Star Wars. Right? Because Star Wars, you've got the Force.
Yep.
It's all around us, and we, manipulates, and people try to draw analogies.
Yeah.
Between that and what the Holy Spirit's like, Christianity, right? And what you end up getting is a weak sense of what God is really about. God is not a force. The Holy Spirit's not a force that I can manipulate. Yeah. Right? That I can, that flows in me and flows through all people. And no, because guess what? There's other spirits out there. That person that I'm talking to may not have the spirit of the Holy Spirit. Yeah. Has some other spirit, right? So it becomes too easy, I think, for us to watch a movie. We begin to formulate what we think about God through the movie I saw. Yeah. And go, okay, this is now truth because I keep seeing it over and over again. Yeah. And so that journey that I've been on, and I know quite a few other people have, like, how do I find God in the movies, is also going back to the Bible. Does what I thought I found in that movie, right? Does that hold weight, right? Does the Bible agree with that? Because again, you can have the Star Wars concept, where you're like, no, that's not right. It's close, but it's not close enough to get us where we need to go. Yeah. And so, I love Star Wars.
Or at least some of them.
But yeah, they're just some. I just fast forward through it, right? Love scenes, Jar Jar Binks, right?
Oh, come on.
Come on.
I don't understand why he gets so much hate.
Well, you know what? If he they just need to bring him out as a Sith Lord.
They do.
So
they need to finally give the people what they want.
At that point. Then I could see
Lego did
right?
it.
Lego did
the
it.
newest Lego creator series has him as the Sith Lord inside of the Dark Millennium
because
Falcon.
Then you can see how great of a story he is. Because he's so dumb. You're like, okay, then he's acting dumb. Yep. To manipulate. So that fixes that thing.
Whole different rabbit hole.
Right. We'll do one on Star Wars though.
Okay.
We'll pick apart every single one. But does that? I mean, I think that is something that we really have to be cautious of because the more and it's not just movies and TVs, but it's social media. Yeah. There's so much garbage out there.
So much garbage
that it's pushed as truth. Yeah. Biblical truth. And I'm looking at it going, that has no frame. There's no similarity to what the Bible says. It's those things like, God will never give you more than you can handle. That's garbage. Right? God will give you more than you can handle. Why? Because in your weakness, his strength is made perfect. It's in those moments of where I can't do it anymore that God's like, finally you can come to me. Yeah. Because you're not supposed to be doing it, right? But we have those. It's one of my biggest pet peeves about social media is all the prophecies that are there on social media. And what I mean by a prophecy, I'm not talking about future telling. I'm talking about like this year is they just blasted out there. This year is gonna be the best year you've ever had, and you're gonna do great things.
How do you know that?
You don't know that. You just the million people just saw that.
Yeah, you're there.
But
just
I've heard it
people
from the
to feel
pulpit
good.
too.
Yeah,
right. You're entering into a new season. What are you?
I could think
talking about maybe that person is.
Yeah.
But the rest of them, they're not doing nothing because they've not even changed their life. Yeah. And so I think just being cautious in all of those realms that we don't take what we're ingesting and go, okay, this is biblical truth. Yeah. Or, and again, I'm talking to Christians. I'm talking about disciples. If you're not a Christian, then, you're going to do what you're going to do. But as a true disciple of Christ, then we take everything and we put it, it's just to capture every thought, right? So we're taking everything that we're ingesting and we're going, okay, does this line up with what God says? Yeah. What the Word says, right? And if it doesn't, then it goes out, right? It's not part. Right. Not the opposite of I'm ingesting everything and how does that then refocus my mind on God? No, it's the opposite side. Yeah. I don't fit God into my schedule. I fit my schedule into God.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is a fight and is definitely a learning curve for some. But
right?
For all, yeah.
I would say for all.
Yeah.
Because most of us are not monks.
No.
You know, I
No.
don't want to be. There's some great stories of monks. There's one guy who sat up on a tall tower, basically. You know, and that was his life because he's like, this is all I want to experience. You know, the hermit concepts. You know, we don't have that.
No.
Right? So we're going to interact with people. We're going to interact with social media, movies, TVs. We're gonna have that, but it doesn't mean it dictates our life. Going forward.
And I've noticed how much the social media aspect, at least, has crept into everybody's lives without really thinking about it.
Right.
Over the last few years, especially since COVID, because there for a while we couldn't do anything but doom scroll.
Yeah.
And so
I like that, doom scroll.
That's my wife and I call it doom scrolling, and we've gotten to a point where earlier last year we were like, okay, it's a problem, not necessarily in our all day life, but we noticed that like our communication kind of went down, stuff like that. So we've started regulating our doom scroll time, and I've spent the last 6 months going through and getting rid of people I follow or content, just because I'm like, every time I watch this, I come out of my doom scrolling session angrier, more aggressive, or just in a not a great attitude. So it's now focusing where all of that content is coming from and what it is.
Because it's important.
Yeah,
And
100%.
Too often we think we can manage it.
Yeah.
Like you know, I'm mature enough to watch that or to listen to that. It's you said it earlier, it's entertainment, it's fun.
Yeah.
You know, and I kind of agree with that partly. But we have to understand the more of that gets into your body, into your mind, into who you are.
Yeah.
Right? The more of it will impact you.
Yeah.
And we look at Christianity, what's interesting is that, you know, here we're called to be disciples of Christ, those that look like Christ, act like Christ, talk like Christ, and yet the majority of our day is ingesting things that are opposite of Christ.
Yeah.
You know, and for some reason we think that, you know, we go to church on Sunday. If we're a really good Christian, we go once a week, right?
Yeah.
I can tell I can tell you, nobody at this church hit 52 weeks last year. I think we had one or two.
Yeah.
Right. That actually got all 52 weeks.
Yeah.
You know,
I was gonna say I know I didn't, which
would be incredible, right? You know, people get sick and people on vacation, right? But for some reason we think, okay, I come to church on Sunday, and in an hour and a half, I'll get enough Jesus in me to then be able to function the whole rest of the time. And when you put it that way, everybody knows it's ludicrous.
Yeah.
There is no way. And yet for some reason we then say, well, I'm mature enough to watch that or read this or do, you know, and that Austin Powers, again, I bring it up. I'm not mature enough to watch Austin Powers.
No.
Right? Because there's not enough God in there, right? That I don't see the impact that or the positive impact on my life. You know, right? There's so much negative there, right? There's no positive horror movies. There's no positive.
No
it's
positive.
all, you know, it's all negative. So I think going through and saying what are the things that I can watch, can listen to, who are the people I follow, you know, who don't I follow. Can I tell you, I just recently and this, you know, might surprise people, I blocked a fellow Christian on social media. Because everything he did was negative. Every post I made, he would make a negative comment on it. You know, that had no bearing. And I'm like, I don't need that in my life.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I'm praying for him that he finds whatever it is that irritates him so much. Right. But I think we have to do that and go, there are people that I don't need in my life. I don't need to see them in my doom scrolling. I don't have to see them there. You know, I don't want to see them in there.
I have a couple of friends I grew up with in high school that are now in ministry
Yeah.
that I have recently just
Yeah.
gotten rid of on my
Yeah.
feeds because I do not agree with the way they live their life.
Yeah.
One way, not in church, and the other way from the pulpit.
Right.
And I'm just like, and I'm not
Yeah.
perfect, but
No.
I'm trying to get to that point where it's not
Yeah.
just garbage in, garbage out.
Right.
It's controlled and at least less than it was.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get better every day.
Yeah. Well, and I think, but isn't that the journey?
Yeah.
And like I talking about kind of my journey, and I, not that I'm perfected, not that I'm there, but realizing I've gone through, right, and I find myself even now going through Hulu and Prime and Netflix and going, oh, I want to watch this movie, and going, no, I really don't want.
Yeah.
Right, my flesh does, but I'm like, I don't need that anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Because again, I think I kind of recognize that at this moment, at this season of my life, you know what? I need something more uplifting. I need something that's gonna focus me a little bit better. And so I'm here to tell you, like, watching movies, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But what's the end goal of that movie?
Yeah.
What's the end space? How does it make you feel? How does it make you act? Where's your headspace at the end of that movie?
Yeah.
Because I think your headspace at the end of the movie is so telling. And because if it draws you away from God, or let me say it this way: if it doesn't draw you closer to God, then it has no part in your life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think if we made that distinction and said, what are the things that draw me closer to God? It doesn't mean I'm cutting all movies out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm looking at them a lot differently than I did before.
Yeah.
And what's so funny to me, in a kind of ironic, is that when we've had maybe a powerful move at church, I get home, all of a sudden there's things that football is a great example.
Yeah.
We have a powerful service at church, or God moved, or whatever you want to call it. I go home, I have no desire to watch football.
Okay.
Right. And I love football.
Yeah.
Right? And you go, well, that's weird. And in fact, a lot of times I have no desire to watch anything. And my Sunday afternoon nap is like incredible, because that's normally I turn on football or a movie that I've seen a million times, so I can go to sleep, right, and take a nap. But the closer I get to God, all of a sudden those other things that I used to desire, I don't desire anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I would rather sit in silence. Now I'm crazy because I do like silence, right? But I'd rather sit in silence than watch a movie or watch a game, or even play a video game, right? Because I love games, right? Well, it's pretty telling. It should be pretty telling.
Yeah.
Then when we don't have those great services, right? When we don't, it doesn't mean that we just open ourselves up and say, okay, well, great, I can watch that movie now.
Yeah.
I'm pop Austin Powers back in. No, I look at that and say, okay, well, I couldn't do it then when I was closer to God. So now I'm farther away from God because I don't really feel His presence.
Yeah.
I still shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
What's going to maybe help me draw there?
Yeah.
And I will put in movies sometimes that will help draw me back towards Him.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Those movies that make me think, like a Bruce Almighty or an Evan Almighty. Another good movie. And kind of it's some really cool God moments in those movies, right? But some of those other ones that maybe soften my heart a little bit more.
Yeah.
To go, okay, I remember seeing God in this.
Yeah.
And reframe us back to those moments.
Do you have a list besides Bruce Almighty and Evan Almighty that are your go-tos for moments like that?
Yeah, there are so many that are there. I think Bruce and Evan are such an easy one.
Yeah.
Because they're God-based.
Yeah.
In the obviously not written by godly individuals.
No, but they're
you put them in there.
Yeah.
I think like the Matrix. Matrix is an interesting one because many believe that it is Christian based. And
Well,
it's like a J.R. Tolkien.
there was an
right,
interview. There was
with-
an interview with the writer
with the
on
writer,
this
right.
fourth one,
Yeah.
and they were like, "What made you write this?" And
Yeah.
I'm not 100%. I'm pretty sure she just sat there and looked at the guy and just went, "It's faith."
It's faith. Yeah. Yeah. The story
Like,
of Jesus.
Yeah, which growing up on the first three, I never looked at it that
Yeah,
way. And once
yeah.
she said it, I watched them again. I was like, I can
yeah.
see this now.
Yeah. The pills and the whole.
Yeah.
Now they're rated
yeah.
R, so we don't watch them, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, so I think a list now that you put me on the spot, you know, a list of those movies. I think it is Chronicles. We watch Lion of the Witch Award.
Yep.
You know, I know that those are more kind of faith-based movies, right? Because again, they're going in that direction.
Yeah.
But I think the list is more of what do I avoid?
Yeah.
Right.
That's a good one.
Right?
Yeah.
So I avoid things like James Bond. James Bond, by the way, is my go-to. Like,
Yep.
I love the Bonds. I've loved them my whole entire life. You know,
Yeah.
I got the 50 disc set. I mean, it's just like, you know, the whole thing. But I avoid those, right?
Okay.
You know, because I know, I know it's not going to put me in the right headspace.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Jason Bourne, one of my favorite series ever. I you know, love those. Those style of movies I avoid.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
I look for more comedy,
Mm-hmm.
and not obviously raunchy comedy,
Yeah.
but just comedy, lighthearted
Mm-hmm.
moments. And can I say this? Cartoons.
My wife makes fun of me all the time, but I will
absolutely
throw
love
on.
cartoons.
Yeah.
You know.
I will throw on Bug's Life.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Like,
Right. Yeah. Despicable Me. Some
Yep.
of my favorite stuff. Right. Those lighthearted, more pure.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Right. And so I think that I look through my life and go, okay, what is it that I need in this moment? So, you know, I think understanding yourself and knowing what's going to clear my headspace.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
I mean, even to the point where like Phineas and Ferb, was it Milo's Law? If you know that one.
I have not.
It's a Weird Al Yankovic.
Okay. Okay.
Right, where there's this guy Milo, and he accidents happen all over him all the time, and it's made from the same guys who made Phineas and Ferb.
Okay.
You know, those cartoons and you know, looking through and I'm not talking SpongeBob. I'm not talking Simpsons. You know, those are raunchy, right? Those are that's a different genre.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the purity of that to go through. Love it, hate it, Frozen. You know, again, there's some cool God moments in that.
Yeah.
You know, and so those style of movies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know people hate Disney, and I completely understand that.
Yep.
Disney has a massive agenda.
Massive agenda.
You know, but I think some of the moments in those, you know, can kind of again soften your heart a little bit, make you think a little different. You know, and if you're looking for God, and they're looking for the truth of God in those moments.
Yeah.
You know, you're gonna find it in that, and it helps reframe your mindset.
Yeah.
You know, and I know they're like, you know, you're an adult. What are you doing watching cartoons? Well, you know what?
Sometimes you just
That's
gotta.
what we need.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to go back to a G-rated world.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Right. That would be kind of nice.
Yeah.
You know, to not have to worry about what we're watching and what we're thinking about, because it's more purity, and which is crazy because we talk G-rated. You know, most cartoons are PG now, right?
Yeah.
It's just I mean, why in the world would I ever have to watch a cartoon, right, with my kids?
Yeah.
You know, I should be able to put in Snow White, and it's G-rated.
Yeah.
You know,
you don't have that anymore.
In fact, I remember that we went to a drive-in when my daughters were young. This is back when Shrek just came out.
Okay. Okay. Yep.
Shrek and Tomb Raider were the two movies
Okay.
that we were going to watch.
That's an
right?
interesting back-to-back combo for a
yeah,
drive-in.
Right. So we're at the drive-in, and we're like, "Okay, girls, you know, we're watching Shrek," and we're going, "Wow,
Yeah.
there's a lot of adult comedy."
A lot of adult
Mike Meyer,
comedy. Yeah.
Right? Like Myers.
Yeah.
So we're looking at that going, "Huh, that's weird." And we're like, okay, girls, you go sleep now
Yeah.
because we're watching Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
You know, because it's late at night,
Yeah.
driving movie. We're watching Tomb Raider, and like, we should have had them watch Tomb
Yeah. Flip
Raider
flop. Yeah.
and not Shrek.
Yeah.
You know, and I love Shrek. I mean, I just tell you, but it wasn't for my little daughter.
Yeah.
You know.
Well,
right?
and I remember because I'm the generation I was. Oh boy, I remember specifically where I was the first time I watched Shrek.
Yeah.
I don't remember my age, but I remember I was young, and then watched it, 3, 4, 5 times because it just came out.
Yeah.
And then went years without watching it again, and then I remember sitting down and watching it again. Like, I completely understand that joke now.
Yeah. Right.
And
Right.
how did I
Yeah.
not?
Thankfully.
Yeah.
Thankfully,
Yeah.
right, that it was written in such a way that you probably wouldn't have got it if you were younger.
Yeah, it's one of those.
But as an adult, you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And unfortunately, a lot of the movies from that era have stuff like that. And as a parent, I'm like, I don't think my kid's old enough to see that for a while.
Yeah, they were pushing the envelope,
Yeah.
and we allowed them to,
Yeah.
right? And made it okay,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
because it was my generation writing
Mm-hmm.
and producing and pushing that a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, it's the Simpsons, right? I mean, what's the Simpsons have been doing for however long they've been, 30 years, whatever
Yeah.
they've been doing.
Give or take.
They're it's not a cartoon, it's an adult comedy.
Well, and it
You know,
a lot of the
based from a cartoon.
yeah, and a lot of the writers that have jumped ship from Simpsons have jumped to TV shows that
Yeah.
aren't shown during the day. They're
Right.
closer to 9, 10 o'clock
Yeah,
after kids are in
Yeah.
bed.
Yeah,
And
some of those, you're looking at previews going, what is this
Yeah.
garbage?
yeah, yeah,
So I think, just as we think through and kind of end today, man, movies are super powerful, and they can be very helpful, or they can do a lot of damage.
yeah, they can be very
know,
hurtful.
And so really, I just challenge everybody to think through that. Like, what am I watching? And obviously, it goes to everything else. What am I reading? What am I scrolling through? What am I, who am I even talking to? My friends that help.
Yeah,
It plays into all of that. But maybe, just maybe, we can begin to change how we watch movies
yeah,
and go, where do I find God in this?
Mhm.
Where's the truth of God in this? Because, and I want to end with this because I think it's so powerful. As disciples, what we're called to do is to go and make disciples,
yes,
right? Paul, and we started with this, and that's why I want to end with it. Paul found the common ground, right? And so maybe that movie that you've watched and you've seen God in that movie, like Bruce Almighty, God sees you, he knows you, he loves you. Maybe that's the common ground where when I'm talking to that individual that doesn't want to hear about Jesus, that doesn't want to hear about my church, doesn't want, they keep shutting me down, but we start talking about a movie and I point them to God in that movie, the truth of God. I find that common ground. Too many individuals tell me all the time as Christians, I don't know how to share my faith. I don't know what to say. I'm worried about it. Find the common ground.
yeah,
Whatever that common ground looks like.
yeah,
Find that common ground. And movies, as powerful as they are, is a great common ground piece.
Yeah.
We find that common ground, and from that moment, then we can begin to share God in there, right?
yeah. I like that.
And all of a sudden, it's not a let me preach at you.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just, let's talk about our life. Let's talk about common interests. And then all of a sudden, God falls into that moment, and we begin to draw people into our mindset, into a relationship with God, and maybe questioning themselves and going, I see that.
Yeah.
Right. I see that moment. Because that's our job. That's our role. It should be our role as Christians.
Yeah.
Right, as disciples of Christ, to go and make disciples, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Finding that common ground.
Yeah.
We saw it in the early church, later church, and we should still see it today.
Yeah.
We find that common ground, that common moment, and it's in that moment that we can lead people to Christ.
Yeah.
Amen. That's all I got to say about that. So, hey, like us on social media. In comments, please let us know. Let us know if you like our new digs, how they look, and how this is working. If you have any thoughts on content, different things that we can talk about, that would be great as well. So we'll catch you on episode 2 coming up shortly.